Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I do appreciate that. I also love it if you leave a comment. I like constructive criticism. If you have a question about the video, idea for a video, or you just want to tell me how you do things, that's always interesting for me to find out. I'd love it if you'd tell me. So today I wanted to do a bracelet, and I have these really pretty blue lace agate cabs that are all pretty big and regular, and I've been sitting on them for a long time, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to do sort of a hingy bracelet with it, and we'll see how this turns out. I have some thoughts, and I've made a little bit of a prototype on a couple of the links, so we'll see how it turns out. But before we do, I wanted to thank some people. First off, my patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters, and I value them so much they can't possibly know. But they're a great group of people, and not only are they providing me financial support, they provide a great community over there where we can all exchange ideas and share advice and show each other what we're working on. It's a nice place. And I wanted to welcome two new ones. I have Emily and Nookmiss. I appreciate you both signing up, and I hope that you find over there what I have found, that there's a great group of people, so thanks for that. The other group is my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 18,000 subscribers, which is amazing. Thank you for that. I love the comments that you leave. It's great to hear when you have gotten something valuable from one of the videos. I like to hear that. That's what every teacher wants to hear, so thanks for that. And thank you for the super thanks and the buy me a coffees. That really does help with my raw material costs, so appreciate that. Okay, well, let's get started on this project. This is one of my design idea sketchbooks you can get on my merch store. This particular one has a useful chart on the back that does fractions of an inch to decimals and converts it to millimeters as well. I find that super useful for a lot of my projects anymore, since I use millimeters primarily, and I was raised using the other units. So it also provides a great place to sketch up your ideas. And then you have a permanent record of what you've made, and that's been super useful to me of late. And today's project is going to be a link bracelet, and I'm going to make each individual link. I've actually made some prototypes here, and that's kind of what the bracelet's going to look like. But the stones that I've chosen are blue lace agates, and I always like the color of blue lace agate. It's kind of almost, in silver it looks lavender, sort of, so it's really, or periwinkle maybe? I don't know, something in there, but it's really pretty. And so I thought we'd make a multi-stone link bracelet. The way I'm going to do these is I'm going to take 22 gauge sheet, which is 0.66 millimeters. And this is 14 gauge square wire that I flattened to about, I guess, about 1 millimeter using my rolling mill, and cut strips of that and soldered it to the bottom of this 22 gauge sheet. Put a bezel for each of the stones on top. And you'll notice that every other link, these little projecting pieces from underneath are either on the outside or slightly inside, so that we can put them inside of each other like this. And then we'll curve it around a pin that we ball up on either end. And I've got an idea for a clasp, but we'll go ahead and make one of these links here, and I'm probably going to make the rest of them off camera, so you don't have to watch me do the same thing like 7 times. And I think it's going to take seven links total or so, maybe 8, but I'm not sure. I'll make that decision when I get there. The overall length of the bracelet is going to be about 8 inches, or I don't know what 8 inches comes to, 2.54 times 8, whatever that is. 200 millimeters, 20 centimeters, a little bit over that. So we'll see how that comes out. I think it'll move nicely, but not flex to side too much. I'm going to need it to flex just a little bit, though, for the type of clasp that I'm going to do, I think. So we'll see if I can make that work or not. If not, I'll have to come up with a different plan. So we shall see. Okay, so let's start by making a bezel for one of these stones. And I'm going to use 3/16 inch fine silver bezel. It's 26 gauge, so it's 4.76 millimeters by 0.41 millimeters, I believe. And so let me find that stuff. Here it is. It's relatively tall bezel, but these are kind of deep stones, and I can always file it down if I think it's a little bit too tall. Getting a really late start tonight for Saturday's video. It's Friday night. So I could be up pretty late doing this. This is probably going to be a pretty heavy bracelet because it's going to have 7 of these big stones on it as well. I'm thinking this will probably be kind of in the intermediate range project, because the different things I'll be doing to assemble the pieces aren't that complicated, but the overall length of the project is going to be pretty long, I think. So let's make a little mark. Now, stab ourselves in the finger. That's part of the process as well, I guess. That's what I get for doing this when I'm kind of tired already. I get periodically asked why I make these angular when I'm soldering them closed, the bezels. And I do it mostly because it's easier to put a little square of solder on top of it, and it sits nicely. And also, when you're pushing these two ends straight together, it's easier to get them to sit nicely for me anyway. That's not to say that it's the only way to do this, but that's kind of the way I do it. My little block broke a little bit earlier. I think I've got one intact small one left, so if you haven't been to my channel before, I primarily use hard silver sheet solder, and I just threw some of it on the ground. I use a liquid flux that I drop on with a dropper bottle mostly. And my torch is a Silversmith model. It's a acetylene air torch that they have, and it's a nice torch. I use a #1 tip. So let's get this bezel soldered. Somebody mentioned in the comments the other day that my videos help them to get to sleep. That's not really my intent, but if it's a bonus side effect, that's great. Okay, let's reshape this. One of my patrons told me that one time too, that she liked to watch silversmithing videos before she went to bed. Made her sleepy. So I pre-cut a piece for these. It's about that big. It's slightly bigger than the bezel. And I left a little bit on either side and a little bit on the ends. And you can see I scribed some lines down it to kind of get an idea of where I wanted the little the parts that will become the hinge to be. And so that's then I'll know where to solder them on. So I cut one as an extra so I would have a template. Where are you? Right here. So this one is about 10, 20, 30, 43-ish, 43 millimeters. And these things ended up being about 23. And I need 2 of these, so I'm going to use this first one to cut a second one. Try and get it as close as we can. I wanted to have enough just sticking out to where I can curl it around big enough to fit a 14 gauge round wire. And so I'm going to do the next one here on the inside of these lines. So I really need these to be soldered on kind of like this here. So that they'll be able to hinge on the inside of that one like that. I would stick my hand in front of the camera. Hopefully you can see that like this. So just like that, basically. Let me make sure these are nice and straight, though. I don't want wonky hinges. What would people say? So I think probably the best way to do this, based on the way I did it before, let's make sure it's still a little bit not straight. Let's just pre-melt a little bit of solder in the middle of each of these, and then we'll flip them over on top of this and then solder them down by heating the whole thing to get it to flow again. So, so I have some hard solder over here. So let's just do that. Those to kind of spread out into a longer puddle like that. And when you do it, add some flux when it's still hot. It may move it around a little bit, so I'm going to keep my tweezers handy so I can push things back into place. And then we'll see if we can't dry the flux so everything kind of stays where it's supposed to stay. It's actually cooled down enough to not move too much. Looks like nothing moved around too much, so let's see if we can get it up to solder temperature, which in the case of hard silver solder is about 1450 degrees Fahrenheit. You can tell whether it's lined up well or not if you slide it in like this. It lines up like that. Okay. And what that'll allow us to do is bend these around into little loops that hopefully stick out just a tiny bit from the ends, and then we'll put a little pin in there. So let's bend these around and see how it looks. I'm just going to use my round nose pliers. I may need to cut these off because I cut them just a little bit long. I'm going to take just a piece off the ends of each of these. Just a skosh. That'll get us closer to where we want to be. But oh yeah, I gotta solder a bezel on this. I almost forgot. Let's put a bezel on here. I was getting ahead of myself there. I'm going to put a little bit more solder. Solder if you're across the ocean. Hello to all of my overseas followers. I have quite a few UK folks, a lot of Canadian people who are not really overseas, but some Australian people, and a number of other countries. It's really been nice to get to be able to meet people from elsewhere through this channel. I've met so many nice people. Looks pretty good. I think the same on these ones, they're a little bit long, so. Flip those off a bit. So basically, these are going to go like that. We're going to run a pin through there like this, but we need to make a pin with balls on either end. And so I'm going to use 14 gauge wire. And I believe this is about the size it needs to be, which is, for this one, which is almost 3 centimeters or so. But let's ball up one end and then we can cut it off if we need to. So if you've never done this, you just hold it in your tweezers like this. Heat it up, then at the end kind of focus on the bottom. And the end will ball up just a little bit. This isn't in its final configuration yet, but we can kind of get an estimate. I'm going to cut it about right there, I think, and then we'll ball it up and see how close we are. I think length we're pretty good on this one, so I'm going to straighten this out just a little bit. And these need to be opened up enough where I can pop them over this. So we'll put it on in there. Oops, maybe. Raise that up on that. You probably could solder these closed if you wanted to, but I don't think for this particular one I'm going to. Okay, so let's slide it in here. There we go. And that actually keeps a pretty tight hinge action, as long as you have it, bent inwards and close. I may pull this one out. This one's just a slight bit loose before I get done with this, but either way, I'm going to go ahead and make some more of these and hook them all together, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about the clasp and see if we can come up with a good clasp. So if there's enough play this way, I'll be able to do the one I was thinking. If not, we'll have to see. Okay, I'll be back in a few. Okay, so I have a bunch of these connected together, 7 to be specific, and I ended up with 2 that ended up in the same configuration, so I snipped off the ends of this one and ground them down a little bit and then added some wider ones so that this would fit together this way. Now, my original idea for a clasp would have required it to go in like this, and I kind of like to make the clasp as hidden as possible, and so this one right now pops in like this and then is difficult to dislodge that way. And this came out to be about that big, which is slightly smaller than what I had anticipated, but I'm gonna go with it. I could add one more link and if I did, then I shouldn't have bothered doing that. So, but either way, I think I like it so far. So let's let it pickle, and then we'll polish it up and set those stones, and we'll see how it looks. So, and I'll think about this claspy idea. I've done some this way where it went over like that and clipped, but for this one, in order for it to stay, I wanted it to really the way it originally was, I would have had to go like this really hard, and if you already have a small wrist, that's not going to be doable. This way, if it goes underneath, you can clip it like that, I think. So, but I'll think on it. So let's let that pickle, and then we'll clean it up and set some stones, and we'll see how it looks. And I'll add an addendum if I think that I need to do something different with this. But so far, I like it. So, all right, I'll be back in a bit. So I set 6 of the stones. This one isn't quite set yet. I put one piece of relatively thick tag board behind it to give it a little backing. I do this a little differently than some people do. I use my chain nose pliers to set the stones. And I'm going to use the flat side of them right here to be my bezel pusher. I'm just going to use the rounded outer part as a burnishing tool. Smooth out that top edge nice. Right. So. Bracelet. I think that's nice. I'm going to have to work on the clasp a little bit here. That's pretty good. Okay, I'll get it shined up a little bit more, and then get some pictures of it. Okay, well that was a blue lace Hinge bracelet. I'm not sure what I'm going to call this yet, but that sounds like a good start. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button. I'd also love it if you'd take a moment and go visit the main channel page. I have over 430 videos. I think it's probably over 440 by now. I haven't checked lately. But there's tons of content at lots of different skill levels, so I'm sure that you'll be able to find something else that you'll find interesting there as well. And I'd love it if you'd sign up to subscribe to my channel. The other thing is, check the video description down below. There's links to my merch store, which you can get those nice design idea books that I told you about. There's also a link to download my newest ebook, which is a guide to last year's videos that I produced, and I produced over 170 videos. So there's a lot of content that you can access through that ebook, and it's worth downloading, I think, and a great way to support my channel. And finally, there's a link to my Patreon if you want to check out that community. It's a great place over there and lots of nice people. So thanks again for watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.